joining us from our nation's capital, the one, the only, Nick Kosko, to tell us all the answers about how the Blackjacks are finally going to win a road game. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yeah, what's going on, PT? Yeah, let's hope so. They need to win out to make the playoffs to have any shot. You look at the team right now, 3-6, 3 games left. There's still a shot for the playoffs, but Baltimore won last night, so the pressure's on this afternoon, or assuming this evening for the Blackjacks to get that win tonight. And it's an elusive thing, the winning on the road, and hopefully, this being the final road trip of the regular season, that Atlantic City finally comes away with a road victory.
Now, 2 or 3 games into the season, they lost to the Soul, but they gave them a heck of a game, 48-41. They lose to the Valor. That was Saturday, May 11th, 41-34. Those are one-possession games. A lot of games tend to come down like that. But then when they lost the quarterback, Hippard, what kind of loss was that, both emotionally and how much did that derail the train, so to speak?
I wouldn't really say it derailed the train. The coaching staff and the entire team's been confident in Randy, obviously. He's a former league MVP. But then you bring in Lacey Township graduate Warren Smith there. He was the first free agent signing in team history. He was signed back, way back in, I believe it was late February. And he came in the Philadelphia game a couple of weeks ago on the road. And it was just a bad game all around, but that's when, obviously, Randy Hippard got hurt. So the game was kind of out of hand at that point. But, Warren makes his first start last week at Albany, the best team in the league, and he goes off for over 300 yards, 7 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So the confidence never drops. And I really, I don't know, the injuries have, stunk, I guess, for the team throughout this season. But then, obviously, they've been in a bit of a funk here, losing 3 in a row. But, you look at the early part of the season, it was lost, win. And you go up to 3-3, and you look back at those first 2 games against Philadelphia and Washington within the first 3 weeks of the season. Those are games that they would love to have back. And you mentioned the one-possession games they've had this year. Those are 2 of them. Obviously, they lost to Columbus and Albany during this road trip by, I believe it's a combined 6 points. So a lot of close games. Really, there was only 2 games this season where they're like, okay, they really weren't in it at a certain point in the ball game. But they're in the game. It seems like every single week they just have to be able to put 4 full quarters together, and then they should be able to beat anybody in this league.
Tell us a little more about Warren Smith Jr. because, on one level, as I sat there and looked at his background and the fact that, in real life, he's a physical education teacher. You mentioned it, Lacey Township, right? He's the gym teacher, right? And then, he leaves school and takes off his school ID and goes and reads the playbook and backs up the starting quarterback for the AC Blackjacks. Then the guy goes down. But I saw an article today that each week he was providing the Warren report to Coach James, right? I mean, it's not like he hasn't been involved.
Oh, yeah, he's always involved, and he's a coach, first and foremost, during the offseason of the Arena League, and when he's out there teaching at Lacey Township High School, he's I believe he's the offensive coordinator for the varsity squad for the high school, and he actually coaches freshman basketball, too, so he has a lot of coaching experience. He's constantly watching film, so he can see a lot of things from the coaching perspective, and obviously it helps out that he is a quarterback professionally, knowing that he can combine those 2 skills, and it just gives him great vision for the field. He could see some things that other people can't. And like I said, he has that coaching perspective. So when he watches film, he might see some things that some players might not see right away. So I would say that to me is an advantage for Warren, and it's crazy too, considering this is his 5th year in the league. He played in Spokane before. He actually played down here the past 2 years in Washington D.C. and was an Arena Bowl champion last year with the Valor. But he is before school is out, he's a part-time employee, so to speak, where he can only make practice a couple days a week because he's not taking days off of school. And then once school's out, then he's finally in there full-time. So I would say, if he wasn't a teacher and he could actually focus his full-time on being a starting quarterback in the Arena Football League, he'd be on one of these teams, if not Atlantic City, and be the full-time starter because he is that intelligent. Obviously, he showed off his skills last week at Albany. He's a really good quarterback.
So dare you say it's parallels to Carson Wentz being backed up by Nick Foles, Randy Hippard backed up by Warren Smith Jr. is like 1 and 1A.
It very well could be. I mean, obviously, it's not to that extent where the team is high-flying atop the league right now. But, I would say that they have one of the better quarterback situations in the league, if not the best one in the league, because you do have a former MVP in Randy Hippard, who's very confident in. when he's in there and healthy. I mean, the guy threw for almost 100 touchdowns a couple of years ago. He's been to 2 straight Arena Bowls. Back in 2017, he was with Tampa Bay, and obviously Coach James and a couple of these Blackjack players when they were down in Tampa. Then he was with a couple more Blackjack players the very next year in 2018 after Tampa Bay folded. They actually went up against Washington when he was in Baltimore. And he has the big game experience. He just wants that one last one, which is a ring for an Arena Bowl championship, and he's got the talent to do that. And obviously, Warren's been to the Arena Bowl. He has seen how it's done, including being on a team last year where Washington was a 2-win team in the regular season. Of course, when there's only 4 teams in the league last year, everybody makes the playoffs. So Washington goes in 2 wins, and then they upset Albany in that first round, the home-and-home series, and then they end up beating Baltimore in the Arena Bowl. So, and Warren was a part of that. So it's pretty nice knowing that you have a solid head coach, knowing that he can bring in 2 solid quarterbacks. So no matter who's in there, you have a chance to win.
Nick Kosko with us on the Pete Thompson Show, the voice of the Atlantic City Blackjacks. Blackjacks on the road tonight to play the Washington Valor in D.C. Pregame 6:30. You can listen to the game at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Nick Kosko and Coffee Jones. So we're 10 weeks into the season, Nick, and you talk about the Blackjacks being a little banged up. I'm sure the Valor are a little banged up as well at this point of the season. What's it going to take for Atlantic City to get that elusive first road win tonight? What's going to be the difference?
Yeah, you mentioned Washington's a little banged up, but they actually just put one of their defensive backs, Fred Obie, on IR earlier this week. And Washington's one of those teams where they've actually been lucky to stay healthy on the offensive side of the football this year. I think what Atlantic City could do tonight is take advantage of the defense. Obviously, not having Obie back there, you have one less pretty solid defensive back there for the Valor. To me, I'm not really worried about the Blackjack offensive. I mean, if they could play as well as they did last year with Warren being the quarterback here, more than likely being the quarterback here tonight, then I have no worries about the offense. But it's stopping Arvell Nelson, the Valor quarterback. He's actually the most elusive quarterback. If you've seen Warren play at this point, where he's got a pretty good arm and he can also take off and run. He's a pretty good mobile quarterback. Arvell Nelson is probably double that in terms of the mobility department, because he loves to take off and run. They actually have designed runs for Nelson, which you really don't see in the Arena Football League that often. So he's a very talented guy. They have a very talented receiving corps. So I think it's going to be up to the Blackjack defense tonight. And obviously, if you're Atlantic City, you look at the game against Albany last week, you lose 63-61, and the one difference in that game was a turnover. The only turnover in the game, the only time either offense was stopped on their possession. So if Atlantic City can play a clean game on offense, I have no reason to believe that they won't win this game tonight. I would say they need at least one stop on defense, because this is a defense that has a lot of talented names on paper, and we saw back in week 2 against Columbus, this team went off, and they had 3 sacks. There were calls and turnovers. They had pick 6. I mean, you have pretty much everything from this Blackjack defense early on. But during this skid so far, particularly in the last 3 weeks, they have not gotten a stop, and obviously they've been battling injuries too. Some guys rotating in and out and just trying different looks on defense. So, but I would say that as long as the defense gets at least one big stop tonight, whether it be a turnover or even just a stop on downs, and if the offense plays a clean game, then I would say Atlantic City is going to roll into next week at July 6th at Bulwark Hall at 4-6, with still a chance to make the playoffs and a chance to knock off the Philadelphia Soul.
Nick Kosko with us here on the Pete Thompson Show. Again, that game with the Washington Valor tonight at 7 o'clock kickoff. You can listen to pregame starting at 6:30 right here, and all the coverage on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, we appreciate you waking up and talk a little Blackjacks with us, and I know I'll be listening, and I encourage everybody else to be listening later tonight as the Blackjacks hopefully go get that elusive first road win.
Hey, you're telling me, BT. I appreciate the time as always, and I gotta say, you're doing a stand-up job filling in for me and Sully during our summer hiatus. So we might have to bring you on more of a guest now during the Saturday Sports Report once high school football is back in the fall.
Well, I'm sitting down, but I appreciate the reference. All right, Nick, take care, bud. We'll listen for your call on the radio.
Appreciate it, BT. Thanks.